Today, we'll be learning a little bit more about SCP-347, better known as the Invisible Woman. Let's check this out, boys.
Crooked and dilapidated on the very end of the last street in town. It's the kind of house that children share stories about and warn each other to stay away from. There isn't even any graffiti on it, rare for an abandoned building in this town. But nobody is brave enough to get close to it and risk their life if the rumors of its history are to be believed.
Let's go, babe. This place is haunted.
Containing 4 men pulls up along the curb outside the house. One of them has been black-bagged, zip
What?
ties cutting into the skin of his wrists. He was leaving a bar in town, and suddenly he found the barrel of a 9mm semi-automatic pistol looking him in the eye.
Dude is getting
held by a man
kidnapped.
with every reason to pull the trigger.
Why?
2 other men had then emerged from the dark behind him. There was a brief feeling of cold metal against his skin as the twin metal barbs of the stun gun were jammed into the man's neck. His body then began to convulse as 50,000 volts of electricity ran through his body.
Okay, guys, I like to make predictions during these SCP videos, and I want you guys to do the same thing in the comments down below. Don't fast forward. I know some of you guys are little cheaters. Don't do that. Comment down below your actual thoughts right now. But I personally think that inside of this house, people think that there's a ghost, when in reality, it's just the Invisible Woman SCP. And she's trying to like get help and maybe move objects around, or maybe she can't talk because she's invisible or something. Or maybe she is talking and she's invisible and people just think that there's a ghost in the house that's haunting them. So I think these guys, they're going to be like, oh, ghosts aren't real. But what they don't know is that SCPs are real. So once they go inside, the woman is actually going to help this guy that is now getting kidnapped. And then she's going to mess with the dudes and then eventually maybe kill the people that did the kidnapping. And then that's when the SCP Foundation is going to come and extract this woman and then contain her so that they can do tests.
And when he was finally able to open his eyes again, there was only darkness. The back doors of the van swing open, and the unfortunate man is pulled out by 2 of his captors. The driver joins to help drag the man down the gravel pathway up to the deserted house's front door. In his desperation, he offers any excuse he thinks might save him. Please, I just need a little more time. I can get the money, I swear. I've got another job lined up, honest. I start on Monday. Just a little longer, I'm begging you.
Ooh, he can't pay back his debt.
His silence as he's taken into the old house.
Ooh, bad boy.
There's no pleading, begging cliche that they haven't heard before.
Why are his
They
kidnappers
run
so
to just tune it
fancy?
out and get the job done. Click, click, click. The 3 men turn on their flashlights. The electricity hasn't been on in the uninhabited house for years. It's the domain of rats, roaches, and spiders now. The only evidence of life being the network of spider webs in every corner and the faint chittering sound of something coming from behind faded wallpaper.
Ooh, it's gotta be the Invisible Woman.
Ever choose to come here is when you needed to do something under the absolute cover of dark, which is exactly what they needed to do. The dark-suited men drop their weeping prisoner to the ground. He tries again to plead with them and receives a hard kick in the gut.
Ew,
It knocks the breath
no.
out of the man, and he is left wheezing in quiet pain, no longer able to speak. One of them finally pulls the dark bag from his head. His nose is bleeding. His eyes are equal parts bleary.
Bro
and
does not
afraid.
look good.
He only half understands his circumstances. What he does understand, though, is that it's looking increasingly unlikely that he'll be leaving this house tonight.
I don't know if it's just me, but this kind of reminds me of Peaky Blinders, and like the guy in the middle is Tommy Shelby, and the guy on the left is his brother. I don't know if you guys have seen that show, but if you have, comment down below if you think the exact same thing.
And look down at the pathetic figure huddled on the floorboards. None of them really want to be here, but this is the job they've been paid to do. They are unaware, though, that they aren't the only ones watching.
Yes!
Somewhere in the dark is someone else.
I love these
Watches
SCP
them with a
videos.
detached, almost amused curiosity. Taking in the deep dark of the house, one of the men wonders aloud whether it might be haunted. The man with the gun laughs as he pulls back the hammer on his gun and tells him that there's about to be one more ghost here. But just as he is about to pull the trigger and put an end to their captor's terrified blubbering, he suddenly hears something that gives him pause.
Oh, yes!
Something from above them, upstairs. Is he imagining it?
Uh-oh.
Or are those particles of dust floating down from the ceiling,
What?
accompanied by the sound of footsteps?
Oh.
All of the men clearly hear it, and the 3 look around, shining their flashlights into the dark corners of the room. The one holding the man at gunpoint motions to one of the others to go check upstairs. He looks like he'd rather do anything else. But when the man with the gun, who is clearly the one in charge, turns and points his gun at him instead, the man finally concedes that he'll go check it out.
Guys, I never really thought about it like that. Like, what if what we think are ghosts, you know, these like extraterrestrial creatures that are invisible and they're like, you know, already dead, and then they just haven't passed over into the afterlife. What if they're just invisible things? What if they're like invisible animals, invisible people? Obviously, you know, to our knowledge, science says that we can't become invisible. That's just not how it works. But what if we could? What if we could? And that's exactly what ghosts are. They're just invisible creatures, invisible people, and they have no idea how to become uninvisible. Like, they're stuck like that. I would probably go pretty insane, and I would also probably haunt people for fun. I don't know. What would you guys do if you were invisible?
He draws a gun of his own from inside his pocket and starts making his way up the creaking stairs to the second floor of the house. The leader's mind is still on whatever's upstairs. His dumb lackey tried filling his head with all those goofy ghost stories, but he knows, deep down, it's probably just a raccoon or something.
That is the
When
creepiest looking
driver isn't sure
raccoon.
there are no other witnesses, he'll finish the job, and they can all get out of this creepy dump. He calls up to the driver and asks him if he sees anything up there. Nothing, he calls down. I think we're...
Oh!
Cut off by his own sudden scream.
Yes!
Two gunshots, followed by a loud thump as something heavy hits the ground. The two men, both with guns out, crouch down in defensive poses. They call out again, asking what's happening, but they're only met with cold, unforgiving silence. Everyone is on high alert now. Even the bound man is now more afraid of whatever's upstairs than the men who brought him here.
I would be
Nobody
too.
dares move as, after what feels like minutes of silence, the footsteps resume upstairs again. The leader calls out again, asking what's going on. Still no reply, just more footsteps. They follow the sound across the floor above them to the stairs, then listen as the steps start to creak again. Their eyes drift over where they see nothing. Are they going insane? The two hired guns share a panicked glance, as if to say, what do we do now?
Dude, I would get out of there.
Answer. A quiet, reedy whisper suddenly echoes through the stale air of the house. With what sounds like a female voice, it rasps, "What are you doing in my house?" The remaining lackey, consumed by panic, begins firing wildly into the dark. The captive and the leader both get as close as they can to the floor as bullets fly through the air, piercing the old wooden walls, causing roaches alike to
Ew.
scatter. Soon enough, the bullets are gone, replaced with only the feeble click, click, click of his dry firing.
They missed every shot.
What's going on in here? He thinks. This place really is haunted. Before another fearful thought can cross his mind, a lamp comes flying at him out of the darkness,
Whoa.
shattering into pieces of skin carving
Oh
ceramic
my
against his
gosh!
face. Next comes a book,
Oh.
then an old heavy phone, and then a dusty old
She's
grip
going
that strikes his skull
crazy!
with a monstrous crunch.
Whoa!
He drops to his knees, bleeding from both nostrils and the deep
Ugh.
gash cut into his forehead.
Bro
before
is not
flopping
doing
face
good.
Down onto the floor. He'll
Ew.
be lucky if he ever wakes up. Only the leader and his prisoner are left now, both confused, both afraid, both seemingly beset.
Dude,
by
just
a
get out of
poltergeist.
there.
Suddenly, the leader feels a hot breath on his neck and a whisper right into his ear. You shouldn't have come here.
Oh,
It hisses.
dude.
He turns,
Guys,
screams,
I'm
and
getting
fires once
goosebumps.
into the dark. Nothing. A strange, tinny giggle suddenly loops around him. It's everywhere and nowhere.
This is a
He can hear
nightmare.
footsteps, but where are they coming from? They're simultaneously getting further and getting closer. An unseen fist collides with his jaw.
Oh!
For a long time. He stumbles, looking around for the assailant, panting like a prize fighter in the championship rounds. But there's nothing there.
Dude, just start
Nothing.
swinging.
Crack.
Just start shadow
Strikes the other
boxing.
side
Go.
of
Just
his
start
face.
punching.
Another giggle from the dark. He spits a tooth out as his mouth
Ew,
bleeds.
bro, she's a
Not knowing what
boxer.
else to do, he extends his arm and fires desperately. Maybe he'll get lucky. Or maybe not.
Guys, comment down below what you're doing in this scenario. Personally, I am performing the helicopter tactic where I spin in a circle with my gun as fast as possible, and then I just start shooting and punching furiously in a circle. I just keep spinning until something happens. I'm just gonna helicopter my way until I win the fight. That's the only way that I think that I'll come out of this alive.
A force wraps itself around his extended arm and pulls on it with a sudden immense pressure. It snaps before he has
Oh!
the chance to scream, his arm bending at the joint in the wrong direction. He lets out an agonized cry as he drops his gun to the ground.
He's gonna feel that in the
scream
morning.
is cut off. And he takes
Ooh.
a punch to the solar plexus, sapping the wind from him as he spews out a thin mist of blood that settles
Ew,
onto the
my,
shadow.
yo!
A woman's face, staring
He
right
sees
at
her.
him, grinning. His terror and pain overcome him.
Okay, that
His
was
mind
kinda
snaps, and he
cool.
faints from panic, collapsing to the ground in a heap. His jacket opens as invisible fingers work a handkerchief from an inside pocket and wipe the blood from the floating face, leaving only a floating, bloody handkerchief. The man on the ground, the one who was brought here against his will,
what's she going to do with him?
Speechless as the handkerchief flutters down to the ground. All he can do is stare in amazement as the leader's arm flops limply upright, as the gold watch around his wrist unclasps itself and floats into the air. And then, with a strange gulping noise, disappears entirely. Footsteps creak across the ground. The front door opens, then closes again, leaving the terrified man in silence.
That door looks like a chocolate bar.
Between two bodies. After a time, he finally gains the courage to stand up. He creeps nervously towards the front door and opens it. There's no one outside. Not that he could see whatever assailant just took out the group of men anyway.
Okay, so this dude just somehow got out of that
house. He steps out and closes the door behind him. He's free, and no matter how hard he tries, he will never understand the true nature of the invisible specter that just saved his life. But while none of the men will never know what they encountered that night, the SCP Foundation certainly does, because these are the kind of antics you can expect from SCP-347, also known by the somewhat obvious nickname of the Invisible Woman.
Well, yeah.
But she has another name, her own self-chosen epithet, Claudia.
Oh.
Foundation staff are currently
Claudia.
unsure whether this is the real name of the SCP-347 entity or a pseudonymized reference to Claude Rains, the English actor who portrayed Dr. Jack Griffin in the 1933 film The Invisible Man. Of course, nothing is really as it seems when it comes to this particular anomaly, though it's easy to be more than what meets the eye when nothing meets the eye at all. Claudia, as I will refer to her both out of respect for her chosen name as well as for the sake of simplicity, is 164 centimeters.
Okay, so I'm guessing the SCP Foundation probably found her after, there were many reports of something like this, and then all they had to do was use some sort of like heat monitor to see where she was, and then bada bing, bada boom, you could see that there's a woman standing in front of me, but I can't see her, therefore there's the invisible woman. So I'm guessing that's probably how they found her.
In height and 55 kilograms in weight. And that's really all that is known for sure about her.
Interesting.
Her primary anomalous trait is, of course, that she is completely and utterly invisible. Although she seems to possess them like an average human, all parts of her body, including blood and hair, will remain invisible even if removed from her body.
That part's really interesting.
Only saliva and bodily waste become visible when separated from her body.
I'm just thinking, dude, there's just like a random turd that you see floating in the middle of nowhere, and it's secretly Claudia. She's just taking a dump.
As a number of disgruntled mop and bucket wielding D-classes are more than aware. Claudia is able to see through what also must be anomalous means, since in typical humans, the cones and rods of the eyes must be visible for them to receive light and thus see.
Right.
Research is ongoing as to how exactly this is possible, as well as what it could potentially provide for active camouflage technology. By her own description, which due to her skittish and crafty personality must be taken with a grain of salt, Claudia is a mixed-race woman between the ages of 19 and 25, with brown eyes and wavy black hair.
How does she know that? How does she know what color her hair is, what color eyes she has? Is she able to turn on and off the ability? Or maybe she was an SCP that was created, maybe during like some scientific accident. Or, maybe she's just lying. Like they just said, maybe she's just like giving a description for herself just for fun and to play with the SCP Foundation.
She appears to have no anomalous traits other than her invisibility. No super strength or speed, no ability to fly. However, what she does have is a very particular set of skills. Skills that make her a nightmare to anyone wishing to keep her under lock and key.
So she's like, female Liam Neeson.
The Foundation. The Foundation quickly learned that Claudia is an accomplished escape and infiltration artist.
Interesting.
With the skills of a veteran thief. She's able to move while making very little noise, which complements her natural stealth advantages perfectly, allowing her to get in and out of secured areas easily. These are skills she's developed not only to survive, but to support certain psychological dependencies she suffers from. While Foundation psychologists have posited a number of mental conditions that could be affecting Claudia, two seem to have risen to prominence: kleptomania and pica. Claudia appears to be compulsively driven to steal as a kind of psychological crutch. Being invisible, naturally, makes her an impeccable thief.
Right.
However, when she has obtained the item of her desire, said item floating through the air is likely to draw unwanted attention. That is where her second strange habit comes in.
So she puts it
Pica
in her
is an eating
mouth?
disorder that causes sufferers to consume items that are not food, sometimes damaging themselves in the process.
Ew! I think my
Claudia
dog has
developed
that.
the unhealthy habit of swallowing some of the smaller items she steals, causing them to seemingly disappear until she later vomits the items back up.
Okay, that's kind of
When
gross.
interviewed on the matter, Claudia stated that she'd gotten the idea from watching Stevie Starr perform on a late-night television show. Starr is a Scottish performer known for his ability to swallow and regurgitate items, though Starr's ability doesn't extend far enough to meet the Foundation's threshold for anomalous. Before she was brought into containment,
I never really thought about that. Like, what if some just like really talented performer? I remember I used to watch this show when I was younger about like these superhumans of people that like could bend themselves in like a box, or like some really great climbers. Like, what if the SCP Foundation found somebody that could like climb something and they were just a super talented climber, but then they were like, no, that's actually an SCP ability. You are an SCP. And they thought that like he was Spider-Man or something, when it was really just a normal person with like this really cool ability.
Claudia had a preference for abandoned houses. The home where Foundation agents finally discovered her was one with a long history of reported poltergeist activity. As is standard in instances where spectral phenomena were suspected, the Foundation moved in with infrared cameras, allowing them to quickly detect the humanoid shape of Claudia.
Exactly
and
as
move in
I
to
thought.
Intercept her. Without the advantage of her invisibility, she had no chance of either evading or besting trained Foundation operatives in combat. Thankfully, it didn't need to come to that, and after a brief period of deliberation, Claudia gave herself up to the Foundation willingly in exchange for shelter and warm meals, both of which would be provided for her in containment. Prior to this, it's believed that she was effectively homeless for years
Aw.
and had been making ends meet in any way she could. She refuses to discuss her past directly, though a long string of ghost activity across the area and at least 2 deaths have been solidly linked to her activities. Being unseen for years of her life has taken an undeniable mental toll on Claudia, the isolation leading to instability and even violent outbursts
Oh, wow.
on occasion. Thankfully, she has responded well to treatment from Foundation counselors and psychiatrists, which has reduced the frequency of these violent outbursts significantly.
So it seems like she's just a normal person that, you know, either she was born with this ability or somehow she just got the ability of being invisible. And then luckily it seems like the SCP Foundation is doing a pretty good job. Like, they're being humane. They're not doing any random tests on her. They're actually giving her like a therapist to just try to help her live a normal life, because it seems like, unlike, you know, some of the Keter class SCPs like Shy Guy or the Statue or the Prototype that are super dangerous and like they're not even really human, it seems like she's just a normal human that kind of just got cursed with this random ability of being invisible. So she's kind of like an X-Men with just a weird power. And it seems like the SCP Foundation, surprisingly, is doing a good job, just like, you know, keeping her happy, giving her food, giving her a place to stay, and treating her, you know, kind of normally, at least.
As she recovers further from her traumatic past, there is hope that Claudia may even begin to recover from her kleptomaniac tendencies altogether, allowing her to live a normal, well-adjusted life, or as much as one can hope to live while still remaining invisible. There's even more good news, though. Since entering containment and undergoing recovery, Claudia has become much more social.
Oh,
She
good.
enjoys interacting with other people, especially when they treat her as though she's an average person. And some of her actions have even been described as bordering on flirtatious.
Oh, no
She
way.
enjoys interacting physically with people, and often plays impish pranks on the unsuspecting people sent into her chamber, such as rearranging or taking items to confuse them. She also shows, for unknown reasons, a particular fondness for interacting with people as they sleep, often touching and stroking
Oh, weird.
them, though it may have been one of the only ways she was able to have human contact prior to entering Foundation custody.
That makes sense.
While she describes this as feeling right, those who experience it from the other side describe it as feeling unnerving, as
Well,
though they've been
yeah.
touched by a ghost. Naturally, due to being an intelligent escape artist that is impossible to see through conventional means, Foundation containment specialists have needed to go all out on her containment measures, both to keep her contained and to keep her comfortable enough that she has no desire to attempt a containment breach. She is kept in a 5-meter by 5-meter room in Site-17, constantly monitored by a remote infrared camera, and in addition to infrared detection systems, Claudia is also visible in ultraviolet light, expanding the Foundation's means of seeing her.
Oh,
Her
interesting.
room has an ensuite bathroom with a shower and bathtub, and is furnished with a queen-sized bed, several oversized beanbag chairs, 2 armchairs, a desk and swivel chair, several bookcases, and a TV with a DVD player.
That's not that bad at all.
Bookcases are filled with various books, primarily adventure novels, Harlequin romances, and art books. She's allowed DVDs of various movies and TV shows predating her arrival at the SCP facility, and may request new material to be reviewed every so often. Claudia is given access to any clothes she pleases, though she often prefers to remain unclothed to take advantage of her full invisibility.
Okay.
She does on occasion wear wigs and makeup for her own amusement. Her room must remain locked at all times when she is inside it.
I am kind of curious too, like what if, obviously we just saw her put on like lipstick and eyebrows, but what if she just like put on, I don't know, like a bunch of paint or like foundation? Wouldn't she be able to see her face then? Or at least like kind of see her face? I guess it would be kind of weird though, because like you wouldn't be able to see her eyeballs because you can't really put anything on your eyeballs. But maybe if she put on sunglasses, like, I don't know. I feel like if she put on enough clothes and other things, like she could technically pass as a normal looking person. Yeah, that would be kind of interesting to see.
And 2 guards are required to check the door for any signs of tampering every hour. The door is only unlocked to allow staff members in and out of the containment chamber for the purposes of research and enrichment. Claudia enjoys chatting with staff members who bring her food, though said staff members are discouraged from forming attachments that are too close to Claudia, as it may allow her to manipulate them into helping her escape or gain special privileges. On the rare occasions when Claudia is allowed to leave the room, she is mandated to wear gloves and a layer of grease paint over her face to give personnel awareness of her hands and facial expressions.
Okay.
If she does attempt violent action or escape, she must be apprehended immediately and placed back into her room. In the event of an escape, infrared goggles will be distributed to all personnel, and any strange phenomena around Site-17 will be reported. Thankfully, escape attempts are quite infrequent, and while she currently has the Euclid Object Class, pending further therapy, her containment class may be upgraded to Safe Class. Of course, the Foundation keeps any containment breaches close to the chest, and if there was a recent containment breach, you'd have no way of knowing. For all you know, she could be watching you right now.
Okay, that's where we're going to wrap it up. I don't want to think about an invisible woman somewhere in my room.